This is Kits and Wagers. I'm Adam Zdroik, joined by Chris Owen. We're here to talk Game Week 30, to talk and bet on Game Week 30 in the Premier League. Chris, we're a little later in the day. You have a little bit more energy than the 6 a.m., 7 a.m. shows, so it's going to be a good show.
I'm just matching this energy you're bringing right now. If you're watching on YouTube, Adam came in like he was like swimming. He's ready to rock. We're recorded on a Friday here. Normally we're recording at like 6:30 a.m. on a Thursday. Well, for me, on a Thursday morning. It's Friday. Though let me tell you, I got a couple screens going. I got Masters on one of them, and then I got the Masters on the other. We're chatting, so I'm totally locked in. I'm maybe overly caffeinated, but also ready to rock for a good weekend of the Premier League. And I'm going to be couch bound throughout the weekend, watching both Masters and the Premier League. And I couldn't be more excited about it.
It sounds like a great weekend. We had to push the show back. Chris was flying from Kansas City. I had some water heater issues, so we had to push that show back from this morning to now. But Chris, before we get into the bets here, so I told you to get to Oklahoma Joe's, the gas station. You haven't told me yet if you actually went there. You told me you got burn ends at some point, but did you make it to Oklahoma Joe's, or I guess Kansas City Joe's? I don't even know what the current name is now.
I think it's just Joe's.
Okay.
I did not make it there, but I did make it to a couple different barbecue locations, mostly because I was at a work event all week throughout the week. And like one of it was like catered with like some barbecue and
you had Jack Stack catered.
Yeah, Jack Stack. And then I actually went back to a different Jack Stack location, which was for a guy who lives out here in Seattle where the barbecue is honestly non-existent. It was tasty. I had a bunch of burnt ends. I had some ribs. My stomach maybe wasn't used to all that meat, but would I do it again? Absolutely. I will say, was it you or somebody else who told me that burnt ends, the birthplace of burnt ends, is Kansas City? So
probably me.
Yeah. So let me tell you, those are tasty, and anytime you can eat some meat that's been cured for whatever, smoked, cured for hours on end, you got to get into it. So I did have some mac and cheese too, which was pretty tasty. But yeah, good to be back here in the home office, though. I will say that.
You didn't get a Sporting KC kit or anything?
If you're, as you can see right behind me is the Seattle Sounders. I was adopted in 2019, and now I'm a diehard. So a diehard, if you will. But yeah, no, I did not. No Sporting KC. But I will say they just opened up their airport, really nice airport, and I was thinking about it.
I heard about that.
I was thinking about it with the lens of like they're going to host some World Cup matches in 2026. I don't know how many each host city gets, but like pretty good setup. When you think, I haven't spent much time in Kansas City, but when you think of it, like what World Cup games? But like Arrowhead, are they still calling Arrowhead? Is a really cool stadium, and then the airport is massive. They have a boatload of hotels, and so yeah, it should be. Honestly, I was like, wow, this could be a good spot for some underrated spot for some World Cup matches.
Yeah, not to get too deep into Kansas City, but their airport is kind of close to the stadium, a little actually closer to the stadium than it is downtown. But either way, maybe I got to get back there at some point, maybe for the World Cup in 2026, maybe get to one of those games. That would be pretty awesome. But haven't been back for a few years, and that barbecue is always, in Michigan, there's a lot of barbecue places, but you just don't find the same kind of barbecue. And I'm still like trying to find as close as possible to Kansas City barbecue, but you just can't really do it. So nevertheless, Game Week 30, Premier League. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, we got our records here. We got the betting records. I'm up to 52-26. Chris is 39-35-1. And we're I think about plus $600 on our parlay. I give that out because our team parlay record is 9-17, but me and Chris are actually both 3 games above 500 each of us. We'll get into that, but again, check out our betting records on the site, on RotoWire, on the betting page. You can find that, and you can see all of the breakdowns for all of the matches. But let's get into it here. So we have a pretty busy week here. A busy Saturday, I'll say. 8 matches on Saturday. And we're going with this first one is uh, a little hard to find some bets for, I guess I'll say here. So we got Manchester City at Southampton, and this number has been going a little back and forth here. At one point, minus 340 for Manchester City about a week ago, but they're currently minus 390 to win. Southampton are plus 1,000. That has been up to plus 1,100 to win. Draw is plus 550. And then if you want to bet goals, you can get over 2.5 goals at minus 175. But if you want over 3.5 goals, that's plus 145. Under 2.5 goals, plus 140. Chris, how did you go about finding a bet for this game? Did you put anything into it when these teams met 2 months ago and Southampton won 2-0 at Southampton?
I don't put much weight into that result. I mean, it was in a League Cup where Southampton was at home and they did win, but like that was a one-off from the whole Southampton season, right? Like Southampton's just been they've been poor. And they met earlier this season. It was in October. Manchester City was playing at home. They won that one 4-0. The season prior to that, they played last March, was it? I want to say. That was in the FA Cup. City won that one 4-1 too. There's been a couple different results here where Southampton has actually kind of hung tough with them. They've got 2 draws in the in last season's Premier League games. They got a 1-1 and a 0-0. But yeah, I mean, City are in a really, I mean, they just got done really taking care of Liverpool there. 4-1 was that Saturday or Sunday? So they're doing pretty well. They're scoring a ton of goals. And I just like immediately my sense of this game is that we're going to see Manchester City dominate from, first whistle to the end whistle. And I expect this to be like a kind of a bloodbath a bit. So what I thought initially, even despite that 2-0 win for Southampton, I think that's just a one-off. But I looked at it, I was like, all right, how can I get Manchester City? Can I get them at minus 1.5 was my first reaction, because I was like, well, I like them to win by at least 2 goals. But unfortunately, the minus 1.5 is at minus 135. So if you can, maybe shop around for that. You might be able to get a little bit better odds. Our Mendoza line is usually like minus 125 or minus 130. So I'm not going to go with that bet. I also looked at if you want to go one more for City to completely dominate by 3 goals, you can get City favored by minus 2.5, and that's plus 185. So kind of a good idea there. But I was between that one and Manchester City over 2.5 goals for the match, plus 110. I really think that we're going to see like Haaland probably score a hat trick here. Jack Grealish has looked really good lately too. They're just in a rich vein of form, as is per usual for City. But I think that they score at least 3 goals here. And if you want to smash that a little bit more, you could go minus 2.5 at plus 185. And even if you want to go a little more conservative, the minus 1.5 there is there too at minus 135. So I'm all over City here. I don't think Southampton puts up a fight.
Yeah, it'd be hard. It's just hard to bet on Southampton. That's just kind of what it comes down to. Southampton against Manchester City. You said Manchester City, rich vein of form. Multiple people, maybe even Guardiola, said after that Liverpool match, it was one of the best matches they played all season, just with how they controlled that one, with how they, it's 4-1. They were down early, but they still kind of did whatever they wanted. And I mean, you look back at before the international break, 6-0 against Burnley, 7-0 against Leipzig. They've been pretty much cruising and dominating every match. Even, home against Newcastle, which Newcastle just ran riot over West Ham. A 2-0 win against them is pretty good. So they've been kind of rolling for about a month now. And then you throw that into Southampton. And if you want to look at the last time these teams played, Nathan Jones was the manager, everyone's favorite manager that apparently everyone on the team hated. Somehow they got that win, but if you look at the lineups there, Cole Palmer started, Kyle Walker started at center back, Cancelo went a full 90, Sergio Gomez started at left back, Calvin Phillips got one of his only starts of the season. So it's just a weird lineup, and Man City didn't really care about it too much. So wouldn't really even look at that game. So as Chris said here, as I put it on the screen, Man City over 2.5 goals. Seems like a pretty good idea, plus 110. I initially had Manchester City minus 3.5 corners, but in the hopes that I'm just going to take Manchester City over 6.5 corners. That's minus 115. My thought was that, okay, maybe Manchester City, they get the 2-3 goals and they get, a bunch of opportunities the first 60 minutes. And then maybe the last 30 is kind of more up and down. And then JWP and company are getting corners. So I didn't want to be in a situation where it's like, okay, Manchester City, they get 7 or 8 corners, but Southampton get 4 or something, and they all come in the final 10 minutes or something when City don't really care because they're looking forward to Bayern Munich. So we're both kind of Manchester City, which isn't surprising. Chris, over 2.5 goals on specifically Manchester City. I am over 6.5 corners on Manchester City.
Adam,
What do you think? Can they get to 7 corners? What do you got?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is going to be one of those like 70-30 possession games, I think. But what were the odds on that Man City minus 3.5?
They're minus 110. It was even odds.
About even odds. So
yeah,
I mean both of those seem intriguing. You're definitely going a bit more game script with the minus 3.5. I feel like, or like theorizing that a bit more. But yeah, over 7 corners, it seems pretty doable. Like if it was like, I think 6.5 is pretty solid. So
my minus 1.5 in the first half is minus 130. So I mean, at that point, it's still minus 130 compared to the minus 115. So it just kind of depends what you want to bet. You could even do like some first half single game parlay where it's like Manchester City 2 goals in the first half and then minus 1.5 corners and then throw in a Holland first goal scorer or whatever kind of a thing. That'll be, pretty simple 45-minute parlay if you think they just come out and cruise. So,
yeah. I mean, I think we're both all over Man City winning this like 3-0. I looked at the total goal bands and I don't have the confidence to not pick like for Man City to show up and not win like 6-0. So,
right.
That one's a little tougher because it's a bit less predictable.
It's just too hard to look at
Southampton
in this spot.
Yeah, totally.
Next match we got is a little more even. Leeds are home against Crystal Palace. Leeds coming off a midweek win against someone, Nottingham Forest, I believe. Crystal Palace also coming off a win, and that was a week ago. Crystal Palace completely dominated. Crystal Palace dominated so much in Roy Hodgson's first game that Brendan Rodgers was sacked the following day. I believe it was 31 shots to 3 shots when Crystal Palace played in their first match under Hodgson. So, that's what we got here. Roy Hodgson's Crystal Palace, just a dominant team. And that's, but we look at the odds here. We got Leeds are plus 105 at home to win. Crystal Palace are plus 255. Draw is plus 250. Over 2.5 goals, plus 115. Under 2.5 goals, minus 140. And I guess the big injury news for Crystal Palace is that Guaita is out again with a calf injury, but also Zaha, who was injured last match. He's going to be out for a couple weeks with a groin injury. So you throw that in with Tyler Adams still out for Leeds, maybe for the rest of the season. You got a couple big injuries for both these teams. What do you think that means in terms of this matchup here?
A lot of opportunity. I mean, we'll see probably Ayew in place of Zaha for Crystal Palace, maybe Edouard up there as well. But this one's a bit interesting because you mentioned the Roy Hodgson bump, the new manager bump, and hilarious. They couldn't score goals before, then they come out and score 2. I mean, Leicester City are brutal defensively.
2 goals from 31 shots, I'll say.
Yeah, right. So the volume was certainly there. But yeah, like I think Leeds, specifically, this is to Leeds, but they've been in some games. They've been over 3 goals in their past 4 games. We had 2-2 against Brighton. We had 4-2 where they beat Wolverhampton. That I lost a bet on that match. I'm not salty. They lost to Arsenal 4-1, and then they come out and beat Nottingham Forest 4-1. So they've actually been decent their last 4 games. I mean, Arsenal, that's a tough team to beat for anyone. We'll talk about them in a second here. But yeah, Crystal Palace, they come out and win their first game in quite a while. But yeah, win it 2-1. So I'm honestly, despite this is probably two-sided here, but Zaha being out of the lineup obviously hurts Crystal Palace from an attacking perspective, but no Gaeta in net, so that hurts them. They're going to give Sam Johnstone the start, it looks like. So I think for this one, I'm on the goals. Leeds have been filling it up, or at least been allowing a lot of goals. They've been scoring a couple goals themselves. Crystal Palace, was the last match more of what we're about to see? Are they going to play a bit more attacking under Roy? But I don't know. I just think that we're going to see a couple goals here. I see like a 2-1. And if I really wanted to go out on a further limb on this match, I would love Leeds money line at home. But I didn't want to make that my bet. I wanted to keep it the duality of the over 2.5 rather than the singular pick on a money line bet. But I do like Leeds money line.
Yeah, I forgot to mention, I was just talking about the Crystal Palace-Leicester match that happened a week ago. It was only a week ago, but I kind of forgot some things. But it was Crystal Palace dominated, but they also allowed the first goal. And then their first goal came, it was an own goal. I think it was an Eberechi easy free kick that bounced off Iverson's back or his leg or something. And then they didn't get the winner until basically the final minute, late in stoppage time. So even though they dominated, they still struggled to get 3 points there, which I think is still pretty interesting. I was going to look at corners for this one, but just in terms of Hodgson, we'll see how they actually want to play. I looked at some corner numbers from the 2020 season, and it just didn't support the way I wanted to go. I thought Crystal Palace would. I mean, I think there's going to be goals in this game, and I think there's going to be corners, but this is one of my rare non-corner bets just because of the unreliability or the unknown of what Roy Hodgson's going to do away from home. I mean, we saw what Crystal Palace looked like at home, but are they going to play different? I think that's possible, but we're both on the same side here. You got over 2.5 goals plus 115. I am on yes, both teams to score minus 110. I think that's, we don't really have to go too much more into it. You can see from all these Leeds matches when Tyler Adams hasn't played, they're just allowing goals. They even allowed a late one against Nottingham Forest last week. Their defense just isn't as good. They're still trying to figure out what they're doing in the midfield. They used Rasmus Christensen in the midfield 2 games ago. Last game it was Roca and McKennie. We'll see who lines up in this one, but I think without Adams in there, I think there's a definite weakness. And then on the other side of that, Crystal Palace, Sam Johnstone, Roy Hodgson, I don't know. Just seems like goals kind of match. So this isn't, you can't parlay both of ours. I assume, I guess you could, but you're just not going to get a ton of value. So it's better off just taking both of ours. If you like them, take them off as single bets with the yes on both teams to score and then over 2.5 goals. I'm actually kind of surprised that over 2.5 goals is plus 115 here, not like a minus 120, but maybe that's just because of Crystal Palace's propensity to play a little more defensive. But again, this is Roy Hodgson and this is no longer Patrick Vieira. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, not like Roy is an attacking virtuoso in terms of his style, but I just think Leeds are just so erratic. Like they are, they have some attackers that can get it done. They can score, but they're terrible. They're not very good. They're not very compact. So it was like, there's the opportunity for Palace to go grab a couple, but this isn't the same bet, but they're quite similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like Leeds make a defensive mistake like every match, and
every.
And if that happens, then you got to think that Crystal Palace probably aren't going to win 1-0. Like, that's not going to happen. So let's just assume Leeds make their usual defensive mistake and allow a goal. And then Leeds will probably get one somewhere. So goals. That makes sense.
Yeah, when's the last time Leeds kept a clean sheet? That would be a good question.
Maybe they haven't. I assume it's at home.
This match is at home. Oh, where they've kept a clean sheet. I have to do.
Not too surprising, but it came 1-0 against Southampton at the end of February. So, right. Southampton, what are you going to do?
Yeah, other than that, yeah. Oh, they held Brentford back in January too to a clean sheet, but yeah, they're not. Yeah, it's been a bit.
So probably the biggest match of the weekend we got, and the final match of the weekend. This one's on Sunday, a little bit later in the day on Sunday. Liverpool are home as an underdog. Could see in the line movement, Liverpool were plus 145 to win this match 5 days ago. Now they're plus 185. So it looks like there's been some Arsenal money. Arsenal are plus 135. Used to be plus 170. What happened in the past 5 days that I guess it was just that Liverpool lost?
Yeah, they got
Well, this is April 2nd, though. These odds, what is that, Sunday? Okay, yeah, I guess. I guess after it just seems like I don't know. It doesn't feel like that much has changed for these teams. That Liverpool went from a home favorite to a home underdog in the matter of 5 days. But I guess just people betting on Arsenal here. We got the draw at plus 270, over 2.5 goals, minus 160, over 3.5 goals is plus 155, and then under 2.5 goals is plus 130. All right, Chris. Everyone knows what you're going to bet here, so just tell us why Liverpool are going to get some points.
I tried to pick every other route here than selecting I wanted to go over. I wanted the under's no good either. Like, you can't get the odds you want. So then I was like, all right, let's take a peek around. How can I put a bet down that isn't a huge commitment? And so I just kind of took a peek around. But going back, Arsenal has not won at Anfield since 2012. I guess in the Premier League, they did win a League Cup match in 2020. That matchup was interesting. It was kind of a lot of
kids.
but you can get a Liverpool draw no bet here. At playing at home, they've been, as we all know, they're a championship level team away from home this season. But at home, they've taken 30 points out of a possible 39. So they've won quite a few games. They've beaten some teams there that are actually, I think was it City earlier in the season. They've beaten a couple other teams where it's pretty notable. But yeah, this is an interesting weekend. We expect City to they're gonna grab all 3 points. If Arsenal are able to go into Anfield and win this, I think that I feel like it's pretty tied up that way. But I'm actually I'm interested to see who makes the starting lineup here. I think they left the lineup. They had Curtis Jones in the lineup on Sunday on Tuesday against
Tuesday
in the 0-0 draw against Chelsea. Interested to see if he comes back out. As no one's surprised here. Their midfield is not quite good. But Arsenal, is this just like a victory? Like this is like puts the feeling in their sails. I'm not sure, but I'm just going to go from a historical standpoint. They haven't won at Anfield in the Premier League since 2012. Tough place to play. I think that if anything, this might be a draw, but on the odd chance that Liverpool actually pull all 3 points here, you can get, you can kind of play it safe with the draw no bet here. So if it's a draw, it's a push. If it's a Liverpool win, you cash out. If it's an Arsenal win, your money is back in the DraftKings bank. So I'm on them here just from a historical standpoint. And they did play earlier this season. I do recall that I think Saka scored the penalty late on the match. Kind of a dubious call, in my opinion, but that's coming from a true Fairweather fan, or not a true Liverpool diehard. So I was like, eh. But yeah, I'm on draw no bet here. If it's a draw, get your money back. Otherwise, yeah, I think maybe we could see something different. We were saying this before they played Manchester United too. Like we're like, no way that they take points here. They won 7-0, and then they proceeded to lose their next 3 games and draw 1. So I don't know what to expect. I do expect a good game. We've seen a lot of goals in these games in the past, and yeah, just hoping for something competitive.
I remember having a discussion with that Liverpool-Manchester United match, and I was like, how much does it matter that Liverpool are at home? And I think we found out, I guess we found out all season that it's a pretty big difference between some of these teams at home and some of them away from home. For some reason, I mean, maybe not for some reason, obviously the fans behind you, sometimes the calls go your way, that kind of a thing. But it's just so crazy for a team like Liverpool just to be, I don't know, incompetent away from home. And then they have the big wins against Manchester City, against Manchester United. They have those wins for them. They haven't allowed a goal at home in their last, 4 home matches in league play. Obviously, we're throwing out the Real Madrid match, but so I wanted to look at corners for Arsenal because of that. And then I looked a little more into just Liverpool at home and how different they are. And I'm kind of siding with that aspect. So Chris is going Liverpool draw no bet. That's plus 110, which I think, is that still plus 110? I know the odds have been changing. Yeah, it's still plus 110. It's pretty good odds there. So when these teams met earlier in the season, game week 10, I look back, Chris took one of his lone corner bets this season. He took under 9.5 corners for the match. It finished 7 total corners. And I'm kind of going in that same route here with this one. Under 4.5 corners in the first half. That's minus 115. I usually like to do this when you got two teams like this, two teams that are near the top of the table, two solid teams where one team's just not going to dominate for, right off the bat and dominate for 45 minutes and rack up, 10 corners, that kind of a thing. So I think it'll be pretty, I want to say maybe we won't get a ton of goals in this one. Not like that first 3-2 match. Maybe Liverpool's defense is a little better at home, but I think Liverpool playing at home, that will just prevent Arsenal from dominating like how they have been in a lot of games this season. So that's going to limit the amount of corners for Arsenal. The other side of that, I don't think Liverpool have been getting as many corners this season as prior seasons. So let's take under 4.5 corners in the first half at minus 115. Chris, do you like the you had under 9.5 in that first game? Are you going with that again? Do you think there's going to be corners in this one, or have the same kind of idea with this matchup?
Yeah, that's an interesting. I think it's. I think it was my lone. I think I had one other Southampton corners bet, but then I left the corners.
There's
bet.
one you lost. That one you won.
Yeah, this one I somehow won. But yeah, I think the under 4.5 corners is interesting. I think Martinelli is just going to come out and just like go at Trent Alexander-Arnold down that flank, and like he's going to just have his hands full throughout. And yeah, I hope, and I wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool kind of plays a bit more reserved and like on a counter attack type of style, but that would lead it to the under 4.5 in the first half. But this is an interesting bet. You're the soothsayer of corner bets. I'm not the guy to ask here, but I will say, yeah, like I'm more perplexed by the overs and the unders here. You don't get any value on the over 2.5 at minus 160 in terms of goals. You have to go all the way to over 3.5 at plus 155. But yeah, you mentioned, Arsenal scored 8 goals in their last 3 away matches, which is pretty impressive. Meanwhile, Liverpool's conceded 0 goals in their last 3 home matches. So something's got to give. I think ultimately this game's like 1-1 or 2-2 or 2-1. So I just, it's not a shutout. I don't think it's a 1-0. I think we're going to see some goals. So
okay,
but I don't know. I'm not weighing in on the corner bets because that is absolutely your road.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn on if there's going to be goals in this match or not, because we saw that Arsenal at Manchester City match where Arsenal had tons of chances to score. They lost that 1-0. Following match at Everton, they had a ton of chances, ended up losing that 1-0. Maybe with Gabriel Jesus back in there, they're in a little better form. Maybe that's going to change things to where they're going to get their goal. They're going to get their goal against Liverpool kind of thing. But I don't know. Liverpool at home, it's almost like, do we want to take the 1-0 Liverpool win? Is that too risky here? Even though Arsenal, this is a game Arsenal know they can get 3 points out of. But this is just it's an interesting one because I'm not sold on there being another 3-2, 2-2 type of result, or I'm not sold on it being 1-0 scoreless. So it can go anywhere, I think, for either side even too.
Yeah, we early in the season 3-2, so a lot of goals. But prior to that, last season was 2-0, and then they did play twice in the League Cup. I think the first one was a 0-0, and then they had to do the replay, and that was a 2-0, both at Arsenal, both times. And then Liverpool won that one. But prior to that, the 2 results were 2-0, Liverpool winning at the Emirates, and then 4-0 Liverpool winning at home. Obviously, a much different team than this season than last season, but we have seen. Arsenal have been shut out a couple times, but yeah, we're talking about 2 totally different worlds from seasons past for both teams.
All right, Team Parlay time. We're still up 9-17, as I said at the top of the show, up $602 here. Me and Chris are both 3 games above 500 in terms of our single parlay bets here. We got a interesting slate of Saturday matches. We got a lot of teams battling relegation. I guess, Chris, the first game you're talking about here, Chelsea Wolverhampton. We Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard, the return of Frank Lampard. They are at Wolverhampton. So how do you think that game's going to go?
Yeah, wow. I've seen some appalling things recently in the Premier League. No one was surprised. Well, I was a little bit surprised to see Roy Hodgson join back up with Crystal Palace. I was like, what is going on? I was like, okay, well, I get that, like maybe they don't have the financial power to go like get a manager that they just want to finish out the season and stay up. If so, that's what Roy can do that. But and then I was like, I saw Chelsea rehire their caretaker manager for the rest of the season, Frank Lampard. They sacked him like 2 years ago, 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh yeah, let's bring Frank back in after he was incredibly unimpressive wherever he's been." Like what? Like I'm just so appalled by this. But yeah. Anyways, and then Wolverhampton, scoring challenge. Chelsea scoring challenge. They come on. I'm like, there's no way that we see more than both teams score here. So I went no on both teams to score. I think what was it? It was minus 115. I want to say
You're at minus 115. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just don't see a way in which both teams score in this game. This is like one of those matches that, even though I have a bet on it, highly unlikely that I watch it. I think it's just going to be a tough one to watch. But yeah, that's where I'm at on this one. We've got just a combination of things where I don't see a lot of goals here.
Yeah, I got a similar bet on my article. Check it out, RotoWire.com. It just makes sense to take this one here. Chelsea Wolves, knowing both teams to score, they're begging you to take it at close to even odds. That's kind of what I found. I mean, just those two teams combined, it just seems like a perfect match that's going to be 1-0 or scoreless or something. But as I wrote in my article, the opposite's going to happen, and this bet's going to lose. But looking at Frank Lampard, January 2021, that's when he was sacked by Chelsea. And then at Everton, the funny thing with the Everton situation was that it seems like Everton are better under Sean Dyche in the last couple months since Lampard's been let go. So it's just funny that, okay, now Lampard's back and he's also managing a team that's still in Champions League. So it's just a wild, incredible situation for him to be sacked by Everton, to be hired by a team that's still in Champions League. But my bet does not involve Champions League teams. I'm back to a team. We got Bournemouth here. Bournemouth are involved in this match. I have another bet on this one. I think there's going to be goals between Leicester City and Bournemouth. It's just going to be I think it's just going to be a fun up and down match. You got two teams fighting near the bottom of the table. Leicester know they need points at home. I don't think they're going to play too defensive here. Bournemouth are a team that will press a little bit, and I think that pressure will lead to some counterattacks for Leicester, which is kind of what they prefer to do with whoever starts up front. Jamie Vardy started up front midweek. We'll see if it's Daka. Doesn't seem like Iheanacho's the starter at this point. Again, he's been benched once more, but I'm taking Leicester over 5.5 corners. That is minus 125. So we got James Madison leading us to victory with this bet. And then Chris's Chelsea and Wolverhampton, knowing both teams to score, is minus 115. We got plus 236 odds on the team parlay. What do you think is going to happen in that Leicester-Bournemouth match?
Like 3-3.
3-3, let's do it.
I don't know. It's something absurd. I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see. What Leicester maybe plays a little bit more conservative with the new manager or the interim manager. But yeah, both teams are bad. Both teams not good at defense. I'm thinking.
Yeah, Adam Sadler, the co-creator of the murder mystery movies on Netflix. That's their interim caretaker manager. But I don't know. I just because those teams are so bad that I'm just hoping that it's not, just a low scoring defensive game, lesser at home. It's like, oh, we don't want to lose, so we're just going to try and like sneak out a 1-0 win. So that's my hope, is that doesn't happen. But I think just the way that Bournemouth played should lead to goals. So you got any other thoughts on any of these Saturday matches here, Chris?
No, just pumped. We got 8 matches, did you say, on Saturday? We're going to be, have a couple. It's kind of like March Madness around here. I'm going to have
Madness.
Masters going on a couple screens. I'm going to probably have a couple screens going on some of these Premier League games too. So yeah, really excited for Saturday. And then of course, I'll be like watching through my hands on Sunday for that Liverpool Arsenal game. Like, couldn't watch but have to watch type of thing. If they take points, we'll be in good shape.
Did you pick up any seasonings? You're going to smoke some birds this weekend, or?
I actually did. I got some rub when I was down there in Kansas City, and
Perfect.
actually got a meter made too. It was like part of. It's pretty sweet though. Thing with the checks your internal temp of the meat that you are cooking. So I'm thinking we got Easter Sunday too. So yeah, I'm gonna get it going. Get a nice brunch going. Maybe like a honey ham. I don't know. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah, honey ham. There we go.
That's what the plan is for the rest of the day, is to figure out what the menu is.
Sounds like a great plan.
Rub some meat,
Just rub some meat, smoke some birds.
Yep.
Got a good weekend ahead here. You can find Chris at CHRO8 on Twitter. I'm at Zdroik. We got this cheat sheet up if you're watching on YouTube or Twitter. We now have FPL cheat sheets. The tech team created these out for us, and it just has the full FPL game week of everything. It has, look at this, we got FPL salaries in the goal scoring odds and in the free kick tracker. So we got all this good stuff here, including all of the points, all the stats. So something, if you play FPL, check that out. Or if you don't play FPL, we still got all the odds for all these Premier League teams. RotoWire.com/soccer trial. It's a free 48-hour trial. Chris, thanks for joining me this weekend on Friday. Hopefully we can get some bets going. Hopefully we can get another Team Parlay hit. And hopefully, let's just say we get we get a draw here out of this Liverpool Arsenal game, but you're going to want 3 points.
Yeah,
so.
Not great.
But thanks for joining me, Chris. We'll see everyone next week. Good luck on your bets.
Thanks, Adam. Cheers.